My bruises fade when I try to pretend I'm okay, and I don't know where anything is or what's going on.
Is it my fault for leaving and breaking up the family? All I had to do is treat you nice and do everything you'd wanted.
But I couldn't. Why wasn't it enough for me?
I still didn't know when I found I had nothing. Your hand never came out of your pocket.
And I spent the next year buying things I thought I owned to feed our kids.
And the penny still hadn't dropped until I walked into Women's Aid.
I am a victim of domestic abuse.
I'm a victim of domestic abuse.
I am a victim of domestic abuse.
Hello, my name's Naomi Cuffey. Welcome to Homes Away from Hell. We all see many streets like this, and this street too. And I'm sure many of us have seen streets like this one. So why am I here? What makes this street and this one and this street different from any other in England? We see streets like these all over the UK, all around the world in fact. In the UK, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men are subjected to abuse at the hands of their partners in their own home. In the UK alone, statistics tell us that 1 in 4 women, which is around 28%, and 1 in 6 men, which is about 16%, have suffered from domestic abuse at some time in their life. As you can see here, from this UK graph, more than 1 in 4 women, which is about 28%, and 1 in 6 men, which is about 16%, have suffered at the hands of domestic abuse. Statistics are one thing, but to get to the heart and soul of a matter, we need to speak to people who have been in the centre of this. These people have been left emotionally and physically scarred by their partners, but what drives them from their own home? Hi Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. Now, Angela, I know this must be a very, very daunting time for you, but I was wondering if you could tell us when the abuse started.
I was with this guy I loved for more than 7 years. We had our ups and downs, but overall it seemed like a good relationship, and I never realised until the end that it was as bad as it was. I always played it down. His excuse was he came from a bad family background, and I always defended him being angry or socially not right because of it. I felt bad for him. That excused his drinking.
And did he give you any reason at all for the abuse?
We would have fights, and they usually started with him yelling and screaming at me. I mean, he would probably be like properly in my face. I would always be because of me. I started it, and if I would have just shut my mouth, the fight would have never happened. He didn't like it when I would go out with my girlfriends, talk to another man. Even if I'd work late, he always thought I was lying or up to something. He would pick a fight for me being gone.
I know this is going to be very hard, but can you give me some examples of what he was doing to you? What was happening in that house?
I'm here today, almost a year later after the initial incident, but I always wonder, why do I still think about him? Why do I still hurt so much? Why does a little part of my heart still love this cruel, angry man? I'm struggling to move on to new relationships. I've met wonderful, respectful, caring people, and it's like I put a wall up and won't let them in. I found myself happy one second and destroyed and crying the next. I just don't understand how someone could hurt me so bad, destroyed my confidence and broke my heart.
That's very terrible. How did you feel about that? How did you feel when this was going on?
The final blow was in January of 2010. I had left him drinking all day because he kept yelling at me for doing something I didn't do. When I left, he kept calling me and screaming at me for stupid reasons. Well, long story short, he told me not to come home, to just pack my bag and go somewhere else for the night. I had nowhere I could go, so I went to what I thought was my home. It was chaos. He grabbed me by my throat and threw me up against the wall. He proceeded to drag me by my hair and began ripping my shirt and jeans. I thought he had finally lost it. He kept hitting me, pushing me, grabbing me. Finally, after what seemed like forever, someone arrived at our home and saved me from his non-stop beating. He saw the car in the driveway and he dropped me on the floor. My face had blood all over it. He split my eye, broke my nose and knocked out one of my teeth. The police were called and he was arrested and bailed out of jail that night by his family member. I went to hospital to get looked at and saw what he had done to my body and face. A policewoman took photos of everything. It was the most embarrassing and horrifying night of my life.
Angela, thank you so much for sharing this story with us today, and we're going to try and bring it to the world. Angela is a prime example of a woman caught in a violent relationship. Control rears its ugly head, as well as alcoholism, which just fuels the violence in the relationship and makes everything worse. Angela is a classic example because she's trying to change this man, but she can't. Not until he deals with the problems that he has. And it's only when Angela's life hangs in the balance that she realises the relationship is not going to end on her terms. Dylan, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you today. Now, not a lot of men come to light with their stories of abuse, but we know a lot of men suffer secretly behind doors. I'd like to say thank you for speaking with us today. Dylan, we know that your abuse started when you were quite young, when you'd left school. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how that started.
I met this gorgeous girl while I was completing my work experience. I had no experience with girls, which I clocked down to going to an all-boys school. She came on very strong and we began seeing each other. She spent all her free time with me, and I would be ordered to meet her at her school. We pretty much just sat around doing nothing. She spoke with her friends while I stood there like an idiot. I wasn't allowed to speak unless spoken to. She smoked cannabis daily. I didn't personally. She used to show me off to her friends all the time by biting and pinching me. She even bent me with her joints and cigarettes. If anyone told her to stop, she would tell me that if I didn't like it, I would have already left.
That's terrible. Can you tell us the reasons why she did this to you? Do you know why she did this to you?
She told me these two lads she used to date had beaten her up badly. I would find out a few years later that was untrue. They had left her because she had beaten them. She used to say disgusting things as we walked through town or wherever, like strangers passing had raped her. She told senseless lies such as things like she had 2 abortions and had to give a child away for adoption, which I found out were also lies.
This is a very stressful time for you, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the kinds of abuse that happened at home.
During the first few days of our relationship, she kept talking about marriage and then asked me to make her pregnant. After that, I always made sure I used a condom. But when she got pregnant, she said she had been pricking holes into the condoms. During the start of the pregnancy, she began attacking me. I, of course, got a job to support us, but she would get peeved off and hit me if I worked with female employees. If I didn't have the cash on me to give to her whenever she wanted it, or even if I spoke about people I knew. She once kicked me twice in the stomach because I insisted on going to bed early to get up for a 3 a.m. work shift. She punched me quite often, kicked me and tried aiming for my genitals. She once even headbutted me and broke my nose. I got home late once and she accused me of cheating and threw a mirror at me. I obviously raised my hand to stop the mirror and a large piece of the glass cut me. As she was still hurling things, I wrapped my t-shirt around my hand, but I quickly realised if I didn't get it sorted, I would bleed to death. I had to have surgery to repair the tendons in my index and ring finger. After that came the therapy, and even now it's still painful.
Dylan, can you tell us a little bit about how you felt when you left the house? How did you feel when you were there?
She used to say terrible things to me, disgusting things, one that sticked. She came over to see me at my house early on in the relationship. She told me on the way she had wondered why she'd bothered going to see me, seeming as she thought I was a munter, and said that I had a small penis and I never satisfied her. She told me she had two massive older brothers who didn't like me and had twice threatened to come around with a gun to check me out.
Can you tell me about the day you finally broke free?
I let the relationship go on like this for 8 years, and the violence just escalated. And it took me ages to stand up to her, and I only did it because she started hitting me in front of our children. To be honest, I just felt powerless. Like there was nothing I could do. I walked away, went and stayed with my mum and took the children with me. The only reasons why I did this was because she began hitting our children. At the moment, I'm undergoing therapy, but I feel stronger without her, and I'm going through the courts to get custody of our children so we can all have a happier life.
Dylan, we'd like to say thank you so much for talking with us, and we're so happy to see that you're healing after this traumatic time. We wish you and your children all the best.